Social emotional learning is very important to me. A couple years ago, I lost both my mom, my dad, and actually also my grandmother in a one-year period. And while it was very difficult on me, it was really hard on my children. They were concerned and fearful about who was going to be next in their lives. When they came to school, we had a school counselor who was able to meet with them, which was really helpful. But even more so, when we were gone, that counselor and the teachers were working with their classmates to make sure that they understood how to be empathetic and how to talk about death and loss and sadness, so that when my kids came back into the classroom, there wasn't an odd silence or any looks about what they might be feeling or about their losses, but it was really something that they were able to express, and the children were able to support them through their difficult time. And it was an amazing thing to see. And these, we're talking about second graders and fourth graders who are doing this. And social emotional learning across the board is so important. For my children, it was about this loss in their lives, but for others it might be around homelessness, or moving from a foreign country, or having witnessed a crime or abuse, or just being stressed and anxious. And social emotional learning is one of those things that if children actually have the skills and the knowledge to talk about and to deal with their stress and anxiety, then they'll be more ready to learn.
So social emotional learning really gets at skills that are necessary for students to be successful in school, in life, and ultimately in their careers. And so there's skills that look at the ability to have self-awareness, self-management, so to be able to handle emotions and understand the impact that that could have on others. Social awareness, relationship skills, and decision-making skills, which, as you can imagine, are incredibly important for students, especially as we get into the middle school and high school years. So it's interesting because there's always a lot of confusion around the difference between the two. So if you think of social emotional learning in terms of explicit skill development, positive behavior interventions and supports, so PBIS, gets at the structure. It provides a framework for schools, and they bring in pieces. So often a lot of schools that implement positive behavior supports have a piece around skill development around social emotional learning. Some may not, it depends.
There are a lot of schools around the state who are doing social emotional learning, and unfortunately a lot who are not. And as we roll out and encourage social emotional learning in the schools, we want to make sure that schools have resources to be able to implement it. And part of that resource is benchmarks and understanding of what does social emotional learning look like and mean at each different grade level. So creating benchmarks for that, for schools to understand which skills at different age levels. And then also capacity development for the leaders of schools to buy into social emotional learning, so principals and administrators and teachers. And also providing that training so that they know how to implement and support their children, their students, and the administrators around social emotional learning.
So right now, we've had a lot of changes in our schools. We have Common Core, we have the Smarter Balanced Assessment, and so that's brought a lot of stress to schools. And we've seen increasing amounts of anxiety with students and teachers that feel like they don't have all the tools and skills that they need in order to meet the needs of the students in front of them. So social emotional learning really not only is going to help students with their skill development, but also provides teachers with tools to look at classroom management and to have awareness around behavior. All behavior is functional, and also if we think about relationships in schools, they're foundational. And so if we want students to be engaged, to not have issues with bullying or fighting with peers. And of course, you can go all the way to the really significant instances that we've heard of recently in schools in Marysville. We need a structure in place for schools to be able to meet some of these needs.
I think it's really important that we address social emotional learning right now. Before us are two important court cases around education, McCleary, and around mental health. And if we can take some proactive steps to make sure that we provide some upstream solutions like social emotional learning, we can be sure that children have a grounding in how to deal with stress and anxiety from an early age so that they can be successful throughout the rest of their lives.
So there's multiple ways parents and families can engage. It can be as simply as engaging at your local school and talking about this issue. You can also engage through the state PTA. We have a platform. This is the number 2 platform issue for this legislative biennium, and there's going to be legislation by Representative Tana Senn, and so we're going to need parents and families that are comfortable reaching out to their local legislators in support of this issue and weighing in. So you can do that through, as I mentioned, getting on the issue team through Washington State PTA, or there's a grassroots coalition of other organizations, including the PTAs around our state, that are engaging on this issue. And you can go to www.sel4wa.com.